I'd like to call the Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019 Papillion City Council meeting to order. Ms. Brown, would you please take the roll?
Sunday. Here. Mumgard. Here. Gaines. Here. Glover. Here. Jaworski. Here. Klug. Stubbe. Here. Engberg. Here.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Do we have an affidavit of publication on file?
We do.
And a current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the council chambers. Ms. Myers, Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just an update on a couple projects. We're partnering with the City of Omaha on the Signal Interconnect project on 84th Street. That will begin on Monday, April 1st. Again, the project starts at Center Street and moves south to Lincoln Road. Again, upon completion of that, traffic flow along 84th Street will be improved. You'll be seeing a memorandum of understanding here within the next couple weeks for approval. Also, Papillion Bay has changed their opening. The extended school session has impacted our ability to have lifeguards there. So bottom line, we're going to open as scheduled on Saturday, May 25th through Monday, May 27th over Memorial Day weekend. And then we'll modify our hours from noon to 6 rather than 8 p.m. And then we'll be closed on Tuesday and Wednesday to accommodate the school session. And then we'll open up on May 31st with regular hours, just so that you know. Also, cleanup days are scheduled for April 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. And we are having a joint event with the City of La Vista. Again, this partnership provides a great opportunity to save costs and coordinate traffic. Document shredding is always a popular event, and that's on April 27th from 7 a.m. to noon. Again, the cleanup site is located at 99th Circle and Portal Road, and it's open to all Papillion and La Vista residents and Papillion water customers. And then lastly, just a reminder that we'll have the Papillion Landing Community Center tour on Tuesday, February 12th at 4:30 p.m. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilman Gaines, second by Councilman Engberg. 6 and 7 are pulled. Do we have any proponents? Do you have any opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote on everything except C6 and C7.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is item C6, Resolution R19-0059, a resolution to approve an interlocal cooperation agreement between the City of Papillion, City of La Vista, and Sarpy County to participate in the Sarpy County SWAT team and crisis negotiation team. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Councilman Engberg. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Do we have any proponents? I see Sheriff Davis in the crowd. I don't know if you want to say anything, but at least want to recognize you. You're kind of an important part of this whole thing. If you'd state your name, for the record.
Jeff Davis, Sarpy County Sheriff. No, I do want to say that this is historic, to say the least. Your chief and the chief in La Vista came forward and thought this is something we should look at. We spent a great deal of time, and I thank your attorney and our county attorney for sitting down and putting together this MOU. Basically, if you back up, some of you have been here this long, 20 years, something like this could have never happened, you know, maybe even 10 years ago. But we've worked together extremely well in recent years, so much so that I got to thank you and your chief, as well as La Vista, for helping us out on the flood. One phone call, we had as many people as we could possibly, they could afford to come down there. Without them, I don't know where we'd have been. It took that about a week until the National Guard came down, so that was really helpful. We've been able to work like that for a long time, so this is probably just the next step. It's certainly an undertaking that we believe is going to make it safer for all the residents of Sarpy County, including Papillion. We're sharing resources, sharing manpower, sharing equipment. We combined 2 SWAT teams, and we're taking the best from both teams to make a better team. They'll be more effective, more efficient. You watch, like we do, of the shootings that take place these days. Along with that, we have a stack med team that consists of actually one of your officers who's a paramedic, and other officers who are EMTs, as well as the fire department. They come in right behind the SWAT team. They're able to extricate and treat victims and get them out as soon as possible. That's extremely important and saves lives. So really, I think the chief probably wants to say a few words, but we really appreciate that, appreciate your attention to this, and think it's a historic step forward for everybody.
Thank you very much.
This was an
You want to state
idea
your name
that,
for the record?
I'm sorry, Chief Scott Lyons, Papillion Police Department. Since I arrived in 2015, I've been blown away at the level of cooperation between the cities in Sarpy County and the county itself. That's something very special that you don't get very many places. And even down where I came from in Kansas City, that's not a level of cooperation that they have between the cities. You seldom see another agency in your city helping out. Multi-jurisdictional SWAT teams don't happen. But up here they do, and they work well because there's so many layers that overlap, from the radio system to sharing of, the fire service that's over multiple jurisdictions. And this is just another expression of that. Prior to this, we were with the South Metro SWAT team, which included Ralston and Plattsmouth, 2 different county jurisdictions. And that was a concern of ours over the last, I would say, 3 years. In talking with the prosecutor's office here in Sarpy County, we felt like we could build something better here. As it turns out, La Vista had the La Vista police chief had the same ideas I did. We talked over a period of a couple of months, and then we approached the sheriff, and I was blown away by the fact that he saw the benefit right away. It didn't take much talking before we started working out logistics, and Chief Mark Albert from Bellevue was involved in that process too. He very much wants to be a part of this because he sees the value in sharing resources, personnel. It is more cost effective. It makes us a lot more effective in how we do operations. We can specialize. If Bellevue Police Department joins us, which we're really hopeful they will, we'll have one of the biggest SWAT team in the state of Nebraska. What that means is that we will be able to take personnel in and out on longer operations. We can staff people off. We can send them to training. We can do more specialized operations, and there's a whole category of stuff that we can do beyond that. It's better and makes us stronger. And then I can't say enough about Sheriff Davis in this process and Chief Lawson. They've been great to work with. And the stack med is another great idea that came up through the ranks, and we got Chief Bose involved in that, and he thought that had great value, and he was a strong proponent of that when we went to the chiefs with it. And so this provided a great opportunity to kind of merge this whole thing together, and it is historic, but I wouldn't expect that from any other community like this. This community cooperates, and it gets along, and the agencies get along, and that's good for every citizen of this county.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? Seeing none, any council discussion? Mr. Mumgard.
I'm just going to piggyback on what the sheriff said, that he said there was a time. I've been around here long enough, and Steve, Mr. Engberg have too, that there was a time when this couldn't have been imagined. This wouldn't have happened, that cooperation that the chief talks about just didn't exist. I am so thankful that has changed, because you read something like this and you think, well, why? Of course this is what we're supposed to do. That's what reasonable, responsible people do, is you cooperate in your law enforcement. So I'm very happy to be able to vote for this.
Any other council discussion? If not, please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is related item C7, Resolution R19-0060. Resolution to approve an interlocal cooperation agreement between the City of Papillion, City of La Vista, and Sarpy County to participate in the Sarpy Tactical Medical Unit, STAC Med. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R19-0060? Motion by Councilman Ingberg, second by Councilman Jaworski. Any proponents? I'll carry all the comments over from the previous one. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Chief Bose, anything to add?
Well, thank you, Mayor. We recognize that SWAT teams are called out to high-risk incidents, and it's not always possible to have help right there when an incident happens. So when we were approached by the sheriff and the chief to take part in this, we jumped at the opportunity. We presented it to a number of our paramedics, and we've got a pretty nice list of people waiting to get onto the STAC Med team because we recognize its importance, and it's kind of fun to play around that way too. Our medics, when they're deployed with the SWAT team, will not be carrying weapons, but they will go through all the SWAT training so they recognize the movements, the hand signals, and the tactics involved in that. And as Chief Lyons said, they'll be on the outside ready to go in the case of a medical emergency or a traumatic injury.
Thank you very much. Any council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you again, Sheriff. Item D1, Ordinance 1838, an ordinance to annex certain real estate to the City of Papillion, Nebraska, and to provide for an effective date. Is there a council member that will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Stubbe. Item D2, Ordinance 1839, an ordinance to change the official zoning map of the City of Papillion in accordance with Section 20532 of the Papillion Municipal Code to adopt a zoning map and to apply existing or future zoning regulations, property use regulations, building ordinances, electrical ordinances, plumbing ordinances, and all other regulatory ordinances of the City of Papillion pursuant to Nebraska Revised Statute 16901 and to provide for an effective date. Is there a council member that will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Jaworski. Item E1, Ordinance 1834, an ordinance to amend Section 205-249D4 of Chapter 205 Zoning, Article 36, off-street parking, having to do with the regulators for parking recreational vehicles and trailers in a residential district. The applicant is the City of Papillion, recreational vehicle amendments, and it is introduced by Council Member Luann Kluk. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing and I'll call for any proponents. Anybody want to speak in favor? Anybody want to speak against? Oh. Anybody want to speak against? Or neutral? What is the ordinance doing? What changes are being made or suggested? If you want to come up to the podium, please. I want to be a little bit careful. Part of this, we got some students, so a little bit of education. Public hearings by law are for us to hear testimony from the public. It's not really for dialogue back and forth, but just a general statement. Councilwoman Kluk is proposing to increase the size, availability. An RV right now on the, not in the front, but in the side and other places, if it's on hard surface, I believe can be 35 feet. She's proposing that it goes to 45 feet. That's what was introduced. So we're having a public hearing tonight, so anybody can speak for or against or neutral on that.
I just knew there were proposals for changes to be made, but I wasn't sure of what the specifics were. Thank you.
Can you state your name for the record?
I'm sorry. My name is Connie Egan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? For or against or neutral, just let us know which one it is. And if you'd state your name for the record.
Colin Rupert, and probably against.
Okay.
As we all know, this has been going on for a while. I'm one of them that got not so good of results on mine because I have a 37-foot fifth wheel that I paid to have a pad put in front of my house, which keeps my camper 15 feet off of the street, and I still can't keep it at home. I have to keep it in storage, and it's costing me more money. I'm getting taxed on the property, the pad that I put in, and I still can't keep my camper at home. I have houses in my neighborhood where junkers live, and my $62,000 camper is offensive to people, I just do not understand it. You know, I would like to say you should be ashamed of yourselves for not allowing people to keep stuff on their property. You know, it doesn't affect my neighbor's evaluation, because property is evaluated on what's on your property, not what's on your neighbor's property. You know, so please think about it. Let's get rid of this thing. Let me keep my camper at home, and the people that have campers.
Thank you.
I have
Thank
a
you,
question.
Mr. Sunday.
Mr. Rupert, do you know, I'm just curious, where do you park your, Mr. Rupert's my next door neighbor. Where do you park your RV right now?
I have to keep it in storage at Richfield, Nebraska.
Richfield. Do you know of anybody that had made the ill-fated decision to park their RV down at Merritt Beach and have it get flooded out? Because I drive to work every day to Plattsmouth, and I see it's just heartbreaking. There's all these RVs underwater, and it made me wonder, did the previous council's decision to prevent people from parking in their driveways cost somebody their RV?
Personally, I do not know. I mean, I've heard people that I do know people that had their campers down there, and you know, some of them got hit by icebergs that totally destroyed them. Some of them are in water up to the windows, which I can't reach the top of mine, and they're underwater that far. They're destroyed. They're no good. You know, they're no good.
Thank you. Mr. Ingberg. Oh, Mr. Sunday, can you turn your mic off real quick?
Oh, sorry.
Just put it in queue. There you go. Mr. Ingberg.
Public hearings are for council to testify or to discuss things, but I do want to clarify something in case there's some confusion. What council person Klug has introduced is changing the length from 35 feet to 45 feet. There's nothing else she's proposing to be changed. She's not here, so I'll speak for her because I read it, and she spoke to me about it. So it has nothing to do with eliminating it altogether, changing any of the way that it's processed now or anything. She simply wanted to increase the length.
That's
I didn't want people to get confused by that. That's what she wanted to do.
Thank you for the clarification. Do we have any other proponents or opponents?
Can I just ask one question? If something was said about the side yard, is that
the length would be expanded on the side.
Okay,
Mr. Mumgarden.
Stay there. Okay. Yours is a 32 foot or 37
foot, sir?
Well, this would actually help you out. We're actually being
No,
nicer
because
to
I
you.
can't park on my side yard because I have a pad in front of my house.
Well, okay. And this also would allow you to put yours in the backyard.
I have no way to get there. Not without driving through the grass. You and I emailed back and forth,
Yeah.
and you have a boat,
So the only way to help you out is to put it in the front driveway.
right? And it's far enough back off the street
Yeah.
where it doesn't interfere with any vision. It's off the sidewalk. It doesn't cover the sidewalk. You know, I don't understand why I can't have my camper in my driveway.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sunday.
Mr. Rupert, you're not talking about wanting to park in your main driveway. You want to park on the special pad that you had constructed with the city's permission and bought a permit to do.
Correct.
And you're getting taxed extra because of that pad.
Correct.
And you feel it's unfair that now you're not permitted to use that pad for its intended use. Is that correct?
I even purchased another permit to add on the other side of the driveway to keep another car.
Okay.
So,
Do we have any?
Mayor, I'm going to be proposing an amendment in a little later, whenever the appropriate time is. I just want you to know that I intend to do that.
Okay. Do we have any other proponents? Yes. And if you'd state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Lorene Renante. I was part of the original group we had a couple of years ago that got it up to the 35, and I would be a proponent for the 45 for those folks that had the 40 foot. So please vote for. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other proponents?
I've lived in Papillion a few years. I think it's about 56 years.
Can you state your name for the record?
Lyle Nicholson. And I have the same problem as Mr. Rupert does. Except my pad has been there for about 49 years. And the camper's been on it all that time. And now I can't use it and I'm being taxed on it. My camper, I think, legally measures about 37 feet. So, and I'm with mine on the pad, on the front pad, lacks about 2.5 feet from the sidewalk, which is plenty room, because the sidewalks are 4 foot. So, what do I do? Tear it out and forget about it? And you guys end up with less tax money.
Thank you.
Well, I have a question over here.
Yes.
Yeah, over here. On the taxes, you got me a little bit confused. What taxes do you pay on your RV or trailer?
On my trailer is about $175.
Is that part of the registration?
Yes.
I don't believe the city of Papillion gets any part of that, do we?
I'm being taxed for that extra portion of concrete that's been there for 50 years.
Because it increased your valuation of your house?
Right.
Okay.
So I'll tear it out.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other proponents? Mr. Sunday.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir?
Sir?
I have a question as well. What neighborhood are you living in?
I'm a block and a half to the west of Mr. Rupert.
To the west. So you're in Ward 3.
Yeah, I'm right on the corner of South Harrison and Gunther.
And where do you park your RV now, your camper?
Right now, it's out about 40 miles from here, a little town called Elmwood, and it's parked out in the dirt.
Okay. Curious, have you heard of any Papillion residents that had their RV get flooded because of where they parked it?
A neighbor across the street and down about 3 houses had his at Fremont, and he got water up to the doors. So that means the whole undercarriage will have to be replaced.
And was that particular neighbor affected by the 2017 ordinance that prevented him from parking it in front?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Sunday, and I'll look to Ms. Rupiper a little bit. Specific to an amendment, I'm thinking it might be more appropriate at the next council meeting because we don't actually have a motion on the floor yet. We're only taking public hearing tonight. So at the next one, the third reading, we'll actually have the motion on the floor. Then I think we could do the amendment.
Okay, Mayor, are we going to be having council discussion tonight, or is that next week?
That'll be next week.
Okay, thank you.
So just so people know what is going on, because I know people are interested, next week I'll call for a motion as Ms. Klug proposed it. If there's a second on that motion, then we'll start proponents, opponents. Unless there's an amendment, then we'll handle the amendment, handle discussion on the amendment. If it passes, motion amended. If not, we'll go back to the original motion.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Ordinance E2, Ordinance 1836, an ordinance to amend Chapter 24, Elections of the Papillion Municipal Code, to add a new section requiring written notice of a proposed ordinance to redraw ward boundaries to be sent to residences which would move into a different ward as a result of such ordinance, and to require 3 readings of a proposed ordinance to redraw ward boundaries and to prohibit the suspension of any such readings, submitted by Councilmember Tom Mumgard. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Do we have any proponents? And if you'd state your name for the record.
Good evening. I'm Autumn Skyburns, and I stand in support of 1836. I was one of the residents that was affected during the redistricting back in 2017. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Senator Sue Crawford. She's already really taken care of this issue. There was a bill passed, LB 865. She brought that right away in January. That prohibits any city from reading it on one day, kind of like we did. Now it has to be set up to 3. But I do think there's a very low fiscal impact for sending postcards in the mail, especially when you consider what is the potential community reward for that. I support any real effort to increase transparency. I support any real effort to engage citizens in the civic process. So I thank you, Councilman Mumgard, for taking this issue seriously. There were not as many people now. As you guys know, it takes a while. People don't always follow an issue all the way through. But if you remember back in December, a lot of people showed up, and they said they would have showed up if they would have known when the public hearing was. So I appreciate it, and I support it.
Thank you. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? I'll close the public hearing. Item F1, Resolution R190054. A resolution to authorize the Public Works Department to apply for American Public Works Association APWA accreditation, to approve the APWA accreditation agreement, and to assign Jennifer Ressler as the accreditation manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190054? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Stube. Do we have any proponents? I don't know, Jen, you wanted to say anything and at least introduce yourself?
Mayor, council members and staff. I'm Jennifer Ressler, City of Papillion Public Works Department. The Papillion Public Works Department, under Jeff Thompson's leadership, wishes to pursue accreditation in order to reap many benefits, codifying what we're doing right, taking an opportunity to evaluate things that we could be doing better, and putting in place things by which training, succession planning, those types of activities can take place. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? Any council discussion? If not, please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Mr. Thompson, thanks for bringing that forward. My understanding is if we do go through the process and we are accredited, we'll probably only be one of 2 public works agencies in the state of Nebraska, and maybe a couple hundred in the entire United States? 150, so I was a little aggressive. So thank you very much for the professionalism. Item F2, Resolution R190055. This is a public hearing and a vote. A resolution to approve an application received by Sarpy County from Sanitary and Improvement District Number 293 to connect residential lots with Ashbury Farm, lots 1 through 14 and lots 40 to 73 to the North Shore Commercial Outfall Sewer pursuant to the County Industrial Sewer Connection Act. This is a public hearing. I'll open it. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution R190055? Motion by Councilman Glover, second by Councilman Stube. Any council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F3, Resolution R190061. A resolution to approve an interlocal cooperation agreement between the City of Papillion, Nebraska and the City of Gretna, Nebraska regarding the city's present and future jurisdictional authority boundaries relative exclusively to one another. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190061? Motion by Councilman Ingberg. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Any council discussion? Mr. Gaines.
I'd like to make a motion to table this item to the next meeting, at least.
We have a motion to table to the next meeting. Is there a second on that? Second by Councilman Sunday. Is there any council discussion? Mr. Mumgard.
Yeah, I think in discussing this with city staff and with other council members, that the best thing for us to do is to take some more time to think about this. It's my conclusion that we're not ready to accept the terms that Gretna has offered. I personally have problems with 2 or 3 things. I don't think this is the fairest deal that Gretna could offer for us. The idea of sharing the interchange was the guiding philosophy behind the negotiations. I don't see this as a complete share. When we only get to go 1/4 mile beyond the interchange, that's barely the on-ramp. That's not sharing. And so I have a real problem with it. I'm not ready to vote on this at the moment, and I think taking 2 weeks to talk about it will be beneficial for everybody. So I'm in favor of that.
Mr. Ingberg.
Well, I guess the thing that puzzles me a little bit is we've been discussing this for a year and a half, and now that we have it on the agenda to vote on after the staff followed the direction, unless I'm the only one that took it the wrong way. We gave the staff a certain direction to negotiate this agreement. They followed our direction, and after a year and a half, I don't understand why we need another 2 weeks to review it. Particularly when we could have had some discussion with city staff prior to tonight's vote. So I'm not going to vote to lay it over. I'm going to vote. I'm going to cast in favor of voting on it because the staff did what we asked them to do.
Mr. Gaines.
First of all, I want to thank the city staff for everything that they did in negotiating this. I did meet with Chris and Carla last week, and I'm going to echo the same sentiment that Tom does. Is I think that most people know that I'm not a big fan of boundary agreements, and I know that Chris and the staff did everything they could to negotiate the best that they could. But I feel like when we're doing a boundary agreement, it has to substantially benefit both parties. And I feel like in this instance, I don't feel like it does. I feel like there's other items that need to be discussed. They need to be discussed, maybe not in this forum, but in smaller groups, more answers. And maybe the solution is going back, if we're able to table this, going back to Gretna and just letting them know that there are a number of us that have substantial concerns about the fairness of this boundary agreement. So obviously I made the motion. I'm going to support it, and I hope that other council members will consider it. It's not a vote against the boundary agreement. It's a vote to give us another 2 weeks for something that's going to affect us for the rest of eternity, or until we're able to renegotiate something in the future, if they were willing to do so at that point in time.
Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, so I'm toying with regard to whether this should be considered as a layover. I agree with Mr. Engberg that we've been working on this for a long, long time now, and I know that the city administrator has been working also on this on a pretty regular basis with the city of Gretna. So I do have some concerns with regard to what kind of message that sends to the city of Gretna, that we've been working on this for a long time, and all of a sudden now we want to change, because we have had discussions about this, and we've talked about it, and we've given direction to city staff relative to this. I'm not totally enthused with regard to kind of the boundary line, but I'm just wondering, if we do lay this over, what's the expectation that I can get from laying this over 2 weeks? What do we expect to get from the city of Gretna? What more do we want from them? And that's where I'm questioning a little bit about why we would delay this over, because I'd like to know what we intend to gain by laying it over 2 weeks.
Mr. Jaworski.
I kind of agree with Mr. Stubbe. We've been working on this for a long time. Is it perfect? No, it's not. It's not perfect for us. It's not perfect for Gretna. But it's a pretty good agreement that's been going on for a year and a half. I don't think, for as long as we've been working on it, what's 2 more weeks going to do? I don't think I'm going to support the layover. I'm going to try and support the agreement. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Gaines.
Well, without publicly mentioning some of the comments, I think that after the point that this was negotiated, there was more contact made by one of the parties to other parties that, for me, it calls in to question the legitimacy of the deal. I think that what we need over the next 2 weeks is to maybe have some small meetings, obviously not violating quorum, and just have some of the smaller questions, answered. Because when I asked some of the questions of the city staff of why is this line here and why is this line here, they try to negotiate something different, but Greta could never answer those questions. And those are the things that I want. I'm not totally opposed to every aspect of this boundary agreement. I just think the city of Papillion can do better. And I think we need to go back. I think we need to send a message to the city of Gretna that, hey, we appreciate you negotiating with us. We appreciate, the offer that's on the table, but I don't feel like this is the best that we can get. And I think that because of that, we need to have further discussion between council members and between the city and the city of Gretna.
Mr. Mumgard. Mr. Sunday.
Thank you. I share a lot of the same concerns as Mr. Mumgard and Mr. Gaines, and I do still have unanswered questions. And Mr. Engberg, I have not been looking at this for the last year and a half. As you know, I'm new to the council. I don't have the benefit of the last year and a half that you guys do. I'd like to have some more questions answered, and I'd like a little more time to do that. I think this is a very important decision for the city of Papillion and its future. I don't think we should just fly into it when everyone's not ready.
Mr. Mumgard.
In my career as a
Mr. Sunday, if you could turn your mic off. Mr. Mumgard.
In my career as a litigator, I certainly have tried to negotiate a lot of settlement deals, and I understand fully the idea that, the best settlement deal is one that nobody's happy with. So yeah, I understand that this deal with Gretna should be one that we're not entirely happy with. And I understand that there's always the driving goal of getting it over with, being done. And yeah, I want to be done with it too. Unfortunately, I don't think that a 2 week of additional talking with Gretna is in any way offensive to Gretna. I don't think it should be read by Gretna as a slap in their face or anything like that. I don't think it should be considered irresponsible for the council to say, well, let's think about it a little bit longer. I would encourage our city administrator, our negotiating team, to go back to Gretna and make sure they understand that there are a significant number of council members here who don't like this terms of this agreement. And if they want to get an agreement, they need to talk. Now, do they need to change? Maybe not, but they need to talk. I'm not sitting here today saying that I'll vote against it. I'm sitting here today saying I think 2 weeks of going back and telling Gretna there are some real concerns here is a worthwhile process, and may end up with something better, may not, but let's give it a shot.
Mr. Engberg.
Well, just a couple of comments. I wanted to let Mr. Sunday know I don't fly into decisions like you indicated. I do think about it. I do contemplate the plus and minus of it, and I'm mindful of the fact you're new to the council, but that's why we have the meetings and the closed sessions we've had to get everybody back up to speed. But that said, I think the thing we need to remind ourselves, and Mr. Stubbe said it best, I don't know what message we send, considering that the other community, Gretna, has changed quite a bit to meet us halfway, if you will, to come up with an agreement. Tom made a good point where sometimes an agreement is best when both sides aren't entirely happy with it because nobody gets exactly what they want. And I think we should also bear in mind that although there may be somebody that's going to vote to hold this over for 2 weeks, I think we also need to consider the fact that by holding it over for 2 weeks, it could send a negative message, and that negative message could result in no agreement whatsoever, which also could mean, with a potential interchange coming out to that area we're talking about, we could find putting ourselves in a position where instead of getting half of something, we're going to get 0 of nothing. And if that happens, I think then we've shirked our responsibility to the citizens of the community, given the value of an interchange. And I'd rather share half of it than none of it.
Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, so I guess my thought would be is I'm getting a sense from some of the council members across the aisle that they have some concerns with regard to the agreement. And I agree that this is the big deal for the city of Papillion. There's no question that this is something that's going to impact us for years and years and years. And so I think it would be beneficial that if we have a unanimous decision with regard to this particular boundary agreement, and I guess because of comments made by Mr. Sunday about the fact that he hasn't been part of the council for a long time, he would like to look at it a little bit longer. Again, I'm just going to reiterate that this is a big decision for the city of Papillion. I think maybe taking a couple weeks would be beneficial, because I would prefer to see an 8-0 vote versus maybe a 5-3 or 4-4 or whatever it might end up being. So that would be, I plan to support the layover.
Any other council discussion? If not, the question is there a motion to hold over for 2 weeks? We do have a second? Yeah, so we have a motion and a second. We've had council discussion. A yes vote will approve holding it over 2 weeks. A no vote will continue it tonight. Please vote.
Five yeas, 2 nays by Glover and Engberg.
So 5-2, so motion passes. It is held over for 2 weeks. Item F4, Resolution R19-0062, a resolution to waive utility turn-on fees from March 13, 2019 through June 1st, 2019 for those displaced by flooding. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R19-0062? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Gaines. Do we have any proponents? Any opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is committee reports. I think the only one that met was F&A. Mr. Ingberg.
Thank you, Mayor. We met previous to the council meeting tonight, and the item for discussion was a potential opportunity for annexation. This would be annexation number 2, which involves several SIDs and a couple other areas. We discussed some of the financial information to do so, utilizing the annexation committee's previous work. And I must say that Chris and Amber and everyone involved did a very good job putting everything together for us. The long and short of it is the next step in the process would be for it to go to the Planning Commission. I believe it's May 29th for their discussion. In the meantime, the three of us, we had one absent member tonight, the three of us did vote to, not vote, we can't vote, recommend moving it forward to the Planning Commission. And between now and hopefully May 29th, there's going to be some opportunity for every council person that wasn't at our meeting tonight, that's 5 other council people, will have the opportunity to visit with city staff to review the annexation proposal and become educated about it. That way, when it does, if it does come to us for a vote eventually, they can make a knowledgeable vote for or against.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No other committees met. I don't think, yeah, we got some students here. You guys want to come up and introduce yourselves and what brings you here? And we'll wait, so you can go ahead and come on up. Just introduce yourself and let us know what brought you.
My name is Isaac Grelk, and I'm here for the Boy Scouts communications merit badge, one of the requirements is to go to a city council meeting and participate. So I guess that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ben Grelk, and I'm also attending the Communications Merit Badge.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other comments from the floor? See no comments. Any council comments? Just a few updates from the last couple of weeks. Ms. Myers, Mr. Sturzman, Ms. Powers, and I had a meeting with Metro Community College about some things they're doing down here and maybe some partnerships. We had the wastewater sewer agency meeting. That's progressing along. And then Ms. Myers and I attended the United Cities meeting this month. The main topic was down at the legislature, all of the senators have now identified their priority bills. Full days of hearings started today, and the main items that we're watching are anything related to property tax, big discussion, and then 5G small cell. Then we had a ribbon cutting. Mr. Mumgard and I were for Ortho, Nebraska today, so it was nice to have them here. Reminder, Friday at 1 o'clock, you should have an agenda at your table for the 55th Wings having an alumni appreciation at Veterans Park. You're invited to that. We got cleanup days coming up, and I want to introduce Alex Evans. Alex, I want to stand up just real quick. Alex is our new deputy city engineer. Just real quick, if I've got it right, he's got a bachelor and master's in civil engineering from UNL. He's got a big focus on water resources, wastewater. Been a licensed civil engineer for 15 years. He's been in the private sector. Most of that time, he worked a lot on the CSO project in Omaha, and he's done a lot of private design work. And with the water, a lot of it around channel and lake restoration, green infrastructure design and monitoring, water, wastewater design and permitting, environmental impact mitigation and restoration, and a variety of master plans and studies. So, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us. Any other council comments? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Gaines. Second by Councilman Glover. Please vote. Oh, council comment. Mr. Sunday.
I just had a question for the next meeting. I'm going to be offering an amendment. Is there going to be audience comments allowed for that?
We will call for proponents and opponents.
Okay, thank you.
If as long as it passes. If we get a motion in a second, then I'll call for proponents and opponents.
Okay,
if it
once it's seconded.
If it does not get a second, it'll be dead, and I won't call for them.
Thank you.
You bet. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, we got the motion. We got the second. Please vote. Mumgard and Gaines, please. Mr. Gaines.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you.